iHeartRadio Broadway, driven by Mercedes-Benz.
Theater, obviously, 8 shows a week. You got to love it. You got to want it in a certain way. And the idea from afar, I guess, doing the same thing every night can feel monotonous. But I find it really, you learn something about the role, about life, about yourself, the more you do it. So I think that's the thing. A lot of people, a lot of performers are like, 8 shows, we got to do it. But you get in that groove and you find what it's all about.
The very little bit of singing that I get to do in this show is really what attracted me to it.
Yeah.
Advice, Joey?
Yeah. How not to sing? Yes. Yeah.
I've been getting a lot of instruction about how to hang out in the dressing room with our two actors to play our son.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, it's a lot of fun.
But no, it's just, it's such a fun show, and I actually haven't done an Off-Broadway musical since Rent, which was almost 30 years ago. Wow. And so I'm really excited to come back to that world. It really is different. I mean, look, when you're on the stage, you're on the stage. And it's the same thing whether you're on a Broadway stage or an Off-Broadway stage, but everything else about it is very different. And so I'm really excited to re-experience what that's like, to be back off-Broadway. And I don't have to walk through Times Square, which is fabulous to get to work. Yeah.
I mean, the only drawback really to doing, a show in New York is that I live in LA, so my 3 kids, as I say, I'm living my dream while my wife is, has her hands full with 3 kids right now in LA. So that's the only rub. But other than that, we're hanging in there. Thank God for FaceTime. And I just felt the show was important enough for me to do and make that commitment.
I've spent most of my career actually taking over roles that already existed, that another actor's created. And so I've actually gotten kind of good at it in that, and I, to be frank, prefer it to creating roles because, as Joey knows, you go through an enormous process, an enormous birthing process to get a show from inception to the stage and then to New York and all the things. And it's laborious and it's long and it's, and so I sort of many years ago kind of started to focus, because like Joey, I have a family and I mean, my kids are grown now, but it was very important for me to work as opposed to, create, develop, exactly, right.
Yeah.
And so, I very much focused on like, okay, that show's running, it's successful, the guy's leaving, great, I'll take over, and I know I'll have that job for a year, and sort of that's kind of how I approached things. So in saying that, I just kind of have gotten good at just bringing myself to whatever it is, whatever role it is that I'm doing. I watch somebody else do it. I steal what's good, and I steal what I feel like I can make me, and then I also just bring me to it, and so I've kind of figured out how to sort of smooth my way into that.
I concur on that. I mean, I've gone in for people and same thing, but I used to as a theater kid, it was something I wanted to do is originate a role. That checkbox for
of course.
A theater. Oh
no,
my God.
Absolutely.
And I did something that still has a chance. We did it at Paper Mill and I originated a role in this show called The Wanderer. But this is the first one I did in New York that I originated in.
Is that is it Dion music?
Yeah.
Okay,
Yes. It's really good. And then, but with this to originate it, but I'm there now the same way. It's like, I'm all about coming in.
And you originated in LA, right?
Yes.
Yeah, so you were home.
Yeah, I was home.
You
I
were
was
home.
up the street.
Right.
Absolutely.
Makes
it was
all the
very
difference in the
convenient.
world.
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly. So I get that, and I get the beauty in taking over something. And I also see it's lovely to go, like you say, take what you like and leave the rest, and then bring what you do. And it's very interesting, And that happens all the time with big roles,
Right.
Oh, how are they going to fill that person? And oh, look, she did.
Right.
She brought it somewhere else.
Well, that's ultimately, I think, what people want in a long-running show when they see those roles being replaced, is they want to see the originality that each individual actor brings to the role. You have the skeleton, you have the frame of what it is, but all the meat and bone, all the meat and muscles and all that stuff, that you put that on yourself, and that's what makes it something unique, But also, just to speak to your situation, I also, I would say, the majority of my career was living in LA and coming back to New York and doing Broadway musicals. And so I know what that's like, and having a family back in LA and being here for these long stretches of time. And it's incredibly difficult. You know, it really is. It's not, families aren't meant, especially marriages, and I'm sure you know this, you're not meant to be apart for that long. And when I was doing it, FaceTime didn't exist yet.
Yeah, I was gonna say.
And so it was like, it was hard. It was, hence me being divorced right now. But, you know, but, you know, look, we made it 20 plus years, but nonetheless, you know, it's a really difficult thing, you know, to do that. The reality is that in my experience, you know, my ex-wife was certainly supportive, but at the same time resentful that I had to leave and be gone. And so there's the rub there. She knew that this is what had to happen for the well-being of the family, but also had major resentments because of it, because she was alone a lot of the time with the kids.
Yeah.
So.
And that happens. I mean, luckily, you know, I plan on going another 40 years with my wife, but in you know, the fact that she is there. The thing is, on the phone, I'm a better listener on the phone, by the way, so I get points for that. However, you know, we're all human. You know, we're not robots, and it is hard. And some days it's like, I can't talk right now because if I do, I'm going to say something I regret. So I'll talk to you later. Right. You know, it's that kind of a thing.
Of course.
But I think as a parent, and maybe this is wishful thinking, but, you know, I have to follow my desires and dreams and hopes, you know, and hopefully I'm teaching my kids to go after whatever it is that lights them up. You know, a commitment is a commitment, you know. In our world, it just looks a certain way. It usually looks like we're not home, unfortunately.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's funny, you know, people, and I'm sure you get this all the time, do your kids come and watch you perform? What do they think of you on stage? What do they think of Daddy on stage? And my kids, like, they didn't want any part of it because when they were really little, all they knew was that my job took me away from home. Yeah. So anything having to do with my job, they were like, I don't want anything to do with that. I don't want to see him on stage. I don't want to see, you know. Yeah. Because, you know, it was just this thing that took Daddy away.
Yeah. My youngest son was like that.
Yeah.
One out of the three were like that. Why, Dad? Right. You know what I mean? I'm like, well, you know, got to pay the bills, and, you know, it's, you got to look at the, you know, the ups and downs of it, unfortunately. Well, Straight Man kind of, we sing this song. Tom sings a song called Straight Man and the musical, Drag the Musical, and I do a little, you know, straight man dance. I guess it's my straight man dance. So I don't know if he would fit in the boy band, you know, world very much. I think he's more of a kind of an 80s alt guy. That's how I see Tom. Maybe he's more of in a garage band than a boy band. Yeah. I
was curious about the what it was like for you, because I know what it was like for me, to have the sort of like an enormous success really early on in your career, and then how to have a long-lasting career after that, once that thing is kind of over. Yes. Now, it's not totally over for you in the same way that it is for me, because you guys can and will be continuing and reunions and all that stuff.
Sure,
but like, but in general, like what it's like, because there's really only one direction to go from the top, which is, and hopefully you don't go down to the bottom. You just find the middle, and, you know, and you try and exist somewhere in the middle and slow and steady wins the race. You know, here we are 30, 40 years later after these things, you know. And so I'm just fascinated by that, because I've gone through it and struggled up and down, and it's fascinating to me to think about somebody like yourself who's had a similar situation. You know?
I was thinking that exactly the same thing. It's like, if, you know, you guys were like a band, you know what I mean?
Sure,
like, you know, that cast was like a band, a phenomenon, you know, and it's just a special place. Yes, you don't continue to tour and do the production. I feel, when I look at you, I see what comes to mind is like, well, you continue to act. I mean, you can, yes, that was something but you're in that world. I feel like I'm a theater kid first, and then along came a boy band. Right. And I've never, you know, I don't care why they say, if some people think it's, you know, stunt casting and they want to get it going, that's fine. Sure. Did it get me the gig? Here I am. I'm going to show up, and
of course.
And if I can surprise you, great. You know what I mean? In the meantime, I'm learning something. And doing what I love to do. So, I mean, it was. It's still, and funny enough, even as the new kids are still very, robust and touring, and we have so much to be thankful for, still carving out my own space.
Do you think, because I would say this applies to me a little bit, in that, look, again, when you have such a huge success so early on in your career, it does tend to pigeonhole you into that thing, whatever that is.
Yeah.
Have you found that New Kids was, in a way, something you had to not reject, but like prove to people other than that? Like I have abilities other than this.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I'm known a certain way, even within that world. I mean, I have a lot of, as they say, Joe girls, or, we call them Bravehearts within the blockhead community. They're always surprised when they come and see. Most of them are surprised that, I'm up there doing something completely different, And I don't blame them. That's how they see me, and that's how they follow me. So, yeah, it's I wouldn't even call it a double-edged sword. It's just that balancing act. And then just accepting that it is what it is, and you're going to keep doing what you're doing. Right. And, it's as long as I get to keep working and staying true to who I am, then it's worth it.
I think that's what allows guys like us to have had such a long career, is that it's been about the work, and it's been about like just trying to support a family, have a career, and see the business for what it is, And I see a lot of guys, like I know a lot of guys, like peers of mine, Broadway guys who make the classic mistake of finally having success on Broadway. They become famous in a show, they get nominated for a Tony, they win a Tony, and then they immediately forsake Broadway and they run to Hollywood. You know what I mean? And then they have this bitter reality check when they get there that Hollywood doesn't care about your Tony or you. And so, and I always was like, why you just had this enormous success? Stay on Broadway where you're now a star. Why is it so important to go and do this other thing? But look, I get it. People have their own dreams and aspirations, and that's what. But it just seemed very short-sighted to me, because you've had this again. It's like you've made your mark in a certain area, and then you immediately leave it to go to dive into a giant pool of which you are one of a million. And so I think that, again, you've pursued your career seemingly in a way in which you've taken it where you thought you would be valuable, beneficial, and that you had a talent in doing whatever particular thing that is, And I that to me is, I look at guys like us, regardless of finances, but incredibly successful in that. God damn! For me, it's been 30. For you, it's probably been close to 40. So it's amazing to me, and I'm it's been a struggle, but I'm so glad I'm now sort of like on the other side of it, and I get to be peers with somebody like you, and like, and if it's really, I'm grateful, and it's an incredibly satisfying feeling to have sort of come out on the other side in a way.
It feels that way. I think we're kind of both in that same generation where I think it's a time in our lives where we've done enough work that we can, satisfying, like content, continuing to grow and be challenged. And to your point, I see what you mean about people like just the idea of having you come into a show, it's like, hell yes. Like, I would get that you will, Adam wants to, hell yes. Like, I mean, that's the, and you've continued to do that, and what a wonderful way to, like, serve the community and still get your rocks off. Right, it's like, what do you mean? I'm doing it for myself, but, like, you get to show up, and I did want to ask, not to jump around, I know, and you're trying to stuff as much as we can in this. What to jump to actually on the stage, because I, playing this character Tom, is complicated. I mean, first of all, I keep pounding the drum that this is there's lots of drag queens, but this is like This is a family show.
Right.
And I say that because I have kids that can swipe and find triple X stuff. It's
Right.
like, if I can be in a theater with my son and hear a couple of F-bombs, like,
Right.
big deal. You know
Right.
what I mean?
Right.
It's a family show. This show has heart. They wrote Brendan and Tom for a reason.
Right.
You know, and a lot of people, that's the hill we have to climb is for this show, is remind people that it's a full-blown, like, legit book and musical. But this character, Tom, yes, they say he has a stick up his ass, you know, but he brings his son, his 10-year-old son. You know, I think obviously his ulterior motive is like, what am I doing with my son here? I don't know what to do, you know,
Right.
because he doesn't want to see his brother. I
Right.
mean, so here he is. I guess what I'm getting at, selfishly, is because when I first, a lot of the feels come up authentically in this show for me.
Sure.
I've had moments where, you know, as an actor, you're like, oh, it usually comes here. Oh, it's not coming here. Oh, I didn't know it would come here. Now, so to have those experiences, so these feelings come up, where you maybe break into, for what I'm getting at is maybe you're like almost about to cry and you didn't see that happen. And suddenly it's not there.
Right.
Suddenly, yes, you're doing it 8 shows a week.
Right. Right.
And you go on, and
Yeah.
of course, it's, you know, I had to remind myself all the things and make calls to fellow actors,
Right.
you know, and remind myself, you're still telling the story.
Yeah.
You must have had those experiences.
Sure.
Where some nights it's like, oh my God, it's orgasmic, and some
Yes.
nights you're like, you have any tools, or what do you tell yourself, or what do you want to hear from fellow actors in those moments?
Well, I mean, you know, for myself, this is such a cop-out kind of an answer in a way, but I just fake it. You know, I
Yeah.
fake it.
Yeah.
And really, to me, that's one of the signs of a professional.
Yeah.
Is that
Right.
you can do 8 shows a week,
Yeah.
and some days you're feeling it and you're in it and
Yeah.
you give an amazing performance,
Yeah.
and some days you fake it, you're not in it, and you still give an amazing performance, and the audience doesn't know the difference.
Yes.
You know, and so
Yeah.
to me, that figuring out how to do that.
Yeah.
Now, of course, like, there are those moments in a show where, like, you know, maybe your intention is you want the character to come to tears,
Yeah.
right? And so
Yeah.
you want to try and get there.
Yeah.
And some nights you do, and some nights you don't. You know, like, if that's my intention and I don't get there,
Yeah.
well, then I just don't play the scene in that same way. You
Yeah.
know what I mean?
Yeah.
Or I just alter it just enough so that I can
Yeah.
achieve the same goal, whatever that is, without actually physically getting the tears
Yeah.
going. And not that I'll pretend to be crying, although
Yeah.
you could do that. The audience can't tell the difference.
Right.
But, you know, I just kind of, again, I never took acting seriously, in the sense that, like, we're pretending.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Right.
We're pretending.
Yeah.
We're making faces.
We're playing.
We're playing
It's a
games.
play. It's called a
exactly.
play.
Exactly. And
Yeah,
so,
yeah.
you know, I always looked at it as that. You know,
Yeah.
and I know some actors, and I'm sure you do too, that take everything so seriously, and it's
Yeah.
like you can't talk to them for 15 minutes before they go on stage, and they're getting in character and all that stuff.
Yeah.
But I don't roll that way, and,
Yeah.
and most of the people that I know that I've worked with don't either. And, you know, we're in the wings,
Right.
literally messing around
It's so
up
much
until
fun.
you run
I
out
know,
on stage.
I know.
You
Yeah,
know,
it's
and it's
true.
like, now
Yeah.
I'm the character. It's like literally instantly. You know.
Yeah.
And that's, to me, that's the fun of what we do. I like doing shows like that. I don't want to take any of this seriously.
Yeah.
And no matter what the content of the material is.
Yeah.
I want to have fun, you know. And so
I've been trying to that point, you know, doing it enough. It's like, oh, am I goofing around? But, like, you know, to tell myself that the character, Tom, he likes to goof around too.
Of course.
So it's not like, oh, I shouldn't be goofing around. No, he goofs around too. We can
Right.
be goofing around and then get pissed off the next second. That's the
Exactly.
human experience.
and especially with this show, which
You
is
know.
so much fun, and
Yeah.
the leeway, and also at times, the gray fourth wall that exists
Sure. Sure.
in this show,
Yeah.
where, you know, it's sort of like we're very often, except in the real dramatic scenes, but
Yeah.
there's always a wink to the audience.
commenting. Yeah,
Commenting.
yeah,
Yeah, exactly.
yeah.
And
Yeah.
that's what's so fun about
Right.
it, you know.
And they love that.
yeah,
And they love that. And that's
exactly.
part of theater too. And I love that something can really be, you know, authentic, and then, you know, we can maybe break the fourth wall. You
Right.
know what I mean? Or that idea, that
Exactly.
fuzzy, and they go along with it. That's the great thing about theater. It's
Yeah.
like, you know, and the other thing about it is, like, the other night we did the first opening number, and everything.
You lost power.
Yeah, lost
Oh,
power,
really?
like legit. And they're like, well, sorry, folks, we'll be with you in a minute.
Right.
But everybody gets right back in the saddle.
Absolutely.
Immediately. The audience can shift back and forth, and that's the magic of the theater.
Yeah. Live theater. I mean, I've had to stop shows myself because of technical things.
Yeah.
The last when I was on tour with Pretty Woman, we had a show where we had an understudy on for the lead for Vivian, and she had to make an entrance. She had a quick change and then had to make an entrance, and then we had a long scene in which she had to do this huge dance number, and the zipper broke on her dress, and her whole back was open, and they were trying to get it zipped up until she had to, and then they would like go, and they pushed her out, and her whole back was open, and so she and I are doing a cross across, and I'm talking to her as I'm trying to zip up the thing, and it was just fucked. It was I couldn't get it up.
Yeah.
So then I was like, I stopped the show. I was like, I'm sorry, ladies and gentlemen.
Yeah.
She can't get her costume on right. Go fix that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And they love it. The audience loves it because they know they're watching live theater, and
They
they
really
just
do.
and now they can say when they went, oh, the night that I went, the show stopped because of it's just like an extra thing.
Yeah. Yeah, just to wrap on Tom, it's like I realized that, like, you know, for me, like, emotion and tears aren't required for the role. You know what I'm saying?
Of course.
And to find that is pretty cool. And also, you know, like you say, know you're doing the job. You know what I mean?
Right.
And like you could go to the stage door, and the stage door is lovely. It's kind of a bubble. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
it's
yeah,
kind
of
of a
course.
bubble.
Yes.
You know, not everybody's there,
Right.
but you know, you do believe it. You know, the one time like I felt like the well was dry, someone came from actually Liza Minnelli came on board at the last minute, and she does this. For those of you who don't know, these bookends, sets up the show and then wraps it up, and this voiceover, and it's amazing and so fun. And some of her people came, and it was just funny how this one gentleman just explicitly talked about the character. Tom went out of his way, and I loved it that it was on the night that it wasn't this, you know,
Right. It was a
glorious,
night maybe
euphoric.
you were thinking maybe it wasn't like your
But
A game.
and it wasn't it wasn't an ego thing.
Sure.
It was I just want to know. Is the character being is it being told?
Is it working?
It's really not. Number one, I had to get to that. I had to remind myself, bro, you're making this about you.
Right.
This is not about you feeling great on stage.
Right.
Number one.
Right.
And I say that gently. And then the other thing is, I really just wanted to know, is that enough?
Right.
Is that enough? I hit my mark.
Right.
I was clear. I was present.
Right.
I looked the person in the eyes, and I told the truth. And that's it. And
Right.
so it was lovely to experience
And that's
that.
really all you can do as an actor.
Yeah.
Is those things exactly that you mentioned. That's
Yeah.
what being an actor is. That's what being a good actor is.
Yeah.
You know.
So
Yeah.
you're going to have a blast.
Well,
I'm
it's
so
working. I
ha-
can
I'm-
tell you it's working. What you're doing is working.
Thank you. No, thank you. But it's so lovely to, you know, be a part of a show and be a part of this family and, like, know you're coming in, and it's going to be so great. And, I know you obviously, you know you're going to have a blast because you've been in the game long enough and know a good show when you see one.
I do, and
Yeah.
you know, Off-Broadway has had an incredible resurgence
Yeah.
since coming back from COVID,
Yeah.
and that is so wonderful to see. You know, it's so it's doing as well as Broadway is in many cases. You know, relatively speaking, and it wasn't like that for many years. You know, and so it's really great to have this new fertile sort of breeding ground for great stuff. Thank you for passing the baton
Break a
to
leg,
me.
brother.
Thank you.
Have a blast.
iHeartRadio Broadway, driven by Mercedes-Benz.